Today's conversation is all about Roll20 and virtual tabletop play.
Welcome to DiceGeeks.com Tabletop RPG Show. Level up your RPG campaigns by filling yourself with stories and knowledge. Explore topics from archaeology to film history to writing to literature and much, much more. This is DiceGeeks.com Tabletop RPG Show.
Welcome to the show. My name is Matt, and I am your host. This is the podcast where we learn how to become better game masters and role players by filling ourselves with stories and knowledge. You know, guys, tabletop RPGs are evolving and changing, and technology, as you know, is not stopping, right? It is advancing and advancing, and tabletop RPGs are advancing right along with it. So that is the conversation that I have today. We talk about Roll20. I am fascinated just to see what the future holds for tabletop RPGs and how technology can bring even more fans into the fold of this greatest hobby in the world. Here's the interview. My guest today is the Director of Licensing at Roll20, Emily Floyd. Emily, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Oh, absolutely. It's my pleasure. When did your love of tabletop role-playing games begin?
Oh, okay. Let's see. I started playing tabletop role-playing games basically right out of college with who is now my husband, but was not at the time, and my group of friends. We actually transitioned from being pretty heavy World of Warcraft players and video game players to wanting to do something that was more interactive together and got us kind of off our screens and got us more connected. And then as, you know, world's necessity pulled us apart, we discovered that we could transition our love of playing tabletop role-playing games together online as well, but keep up that same, love of just the improv, the interacting, and the invention that comes with it. So I've actually been playing with that same group now for, I'm really aging myself here, but 14 or 15 years, which is pretty amazing. At the time, I definitely never would have dreamed that I would end up having a career in TTRPGs, but it's not only a huge passion of mine, but I have the privilege of getting to help bring other players the games that they love through a platform that lets them play, which is a pretty amazing transition from just playing D&D in my living room so many years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't worry about dating yourself. I am certainly way older than you are. So, and I date myself all the time. I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know why I would even think about hiding it anymore, because I date myself every time I talk about it in role-playing games. Yeah. But no, that is really interesting to hear how you came to it. And so I assume you had started when you reached out for tabletop role-playing games. It was Dungeons and Dragons kind of all the way at the beginning, or did something else come in there?
Yeah, that would have been 3.5 edition. Okay. So we started there, and then we transitioned into Pathfinder eventually. But we got the thing is the group stayed the same, but we wanted to try everything out. So we got really into Call of Cthulhu. We played a lot of World of Darkness, especially Mage the Awakening. And basically, if there was a system that one of us was excited to try, we would all bring it to the table and give it a shot. So I would say that, D&D was definitely my gateway drug, but at my heart, I love giving new games a try, and I love finding systems that vibe with the groups of people I'm playing with.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, D&D is still the gateway drug of choice, as it were.
Absolutely.
and for a good reason, right? I mean, obviously. But no, that is really interesting to hear then that your group branched out. And it's awesome that you've maintained kind of the same group for a long time. I know that is kind of a mythical thing for some people, because they always, with scheduling and all kinds of things, people usually, well, sometimes we'll have a hard time, getting a consistent group. So that is really awesome that you've been able to maintain kind of some continuity with your group. That is great.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been great. I mean, I'm one of the lucky people who actually gets to say that they got a D&D character to like level 25. But it certainly has been, like I said, a lot of different campaigns, a lot of different systems across all those years. So at the end of the day, we all just love playing games together, and
Absolutely.
TTRPGs really give us the chance to bond over that love.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, do you play more than you run games, or do you run games as well?
My secret is that I do not run games ever. So the funny thing about being in licensing in the TTRPG industry is that I have to be familiar enough with so many different game systems to be able to work with them, sign them, talk about them, etc. But I don't know rules very well at all. So I usually just let the whoever's running the game, whoever's going to be the GM in that particular instance, guide me through it, teach me what I need to know to get along. But I'm certainly not a rules expert on any singular game. And even games that I've played for a very long time, like D&D 5th edition, I have to consult books constantly because I just don't keep any of it in my head. So between that aspect of just how I operate, but also my time, I can't run a game. I marvel all the time at people who GM professionally or who just are constantly the forever GM for their friends. It's such a commitment. It's so much work. I mean, obviously it's work that they love and are passionate about, but it's a lot. And I've never been able to really get into it. I think I've tried it a couple of times, but I prefer to play. I like to just sit back and let the story take me and have fun.
Yeah, no, that's completely understandable. But of course, I create tabletop role-playing game resources to help GMs cut down their prep time so they don't have to spend tons of time in prep. Because I know exactly what you're talking about. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, or we can talk ourselves into thinking that it can be overwhelming. And so that is one of my missions, is to make sure that anybody who wants to at any moment can just say, okay, I want to run a game and not have to worry about tons of prep time. And also a little secret from somebody who was a forever GM from a long time, even though not anymore, actually. There's so many young people wanting to play. We have in our group a young guy who's just joined our group, and now all he wants to do is run games. So I've been playing for like the last almost year and a half, 2 years, which is yeah, I know it's been kind of my longest break from a GM since I found tabletop role playing games. But a little GM secret, I don't really know the rules either a lot of times, right? So that's my secret, and you don't really, in some ways, right? You don't even really have to in certain instances, because the game master needs to push the story, and you need to find, things to dangle in front of your characters. And to me, rules then come secondary. And if
100% agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's really interesting. And so it's really cool to hear about your love of tabletop role-playing games. I love to talk about that with all my first-time guests because, well, I just love hearing about it because I love tabletop role-playing games so much. But it is interesting now. This is part of your career, and you kind of alluded to that you never thought this would be something that would happen. How do you end up working at Roll20?
Oh, that's a great question. My transition into the gaming industry actually was via conventions. So for those of you who think that gaming conventions might be networking opportunities, I'm here to tell you that they absolutely can be if you play your cards right. I began working for a luxury dice company that I met at PAX Unplugged, which is one of my favorite conventions of all time. And that was at the first PAX Unplugged back in, I think that was 2017 or 18, somewhere around then. And so I was working for this dice company that basically I just fell in love with their booth. I spent a ton of time there. The CEO and I got to talking, and he let me know about some openings that he had for running the booth. And through there, I started working more closely with the business. And I had business and management experience from my previous life before I worked in the gaming industry. So I brought that to helping to grow the dice company. And from there started their licensing arm. So I was very interested in bringing some, fan favorite items to the lineup and working with publishers to get specialty dice made for different games like Vampire the Masquerade, for example. And from there, I just loved licensing in the TTRPG space. I loved the concept of bringing products to fans that really embraced the fandom. For me, it wasn't about making things just to make money. It was about making things that got fans excited, that helped them engage with the hobby in a new way. And so I just started digging into that career path, taking all the classes I could, doing all the networking I could, and really getting so many mentors in the space who helped guide me. And it was actually in the middle of the pandemic when I saw Roll20 post they were looking for a director of licensing, and gave it my shot because I had basically worked my way up through what I was doing at my previous company, and it was a perfect natural transition. So I've been there for about 2 years now and positively love it.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I totally agree to anybody who's listening. Yeah. Conventions, go meet people, and things happen. But so why don't, before you kind of explain your role as licensing, because I'm sure some people might be a little confused about that, why don't you just give us a quick overview of what Roll20 is? I know a lot of people will know what it is, but why don't you just give us an overview of what Roll20 is?
Of course. Roll20 is a virtual tabletop. It's actually the #1 virtual tabletop where folks can play games online with each other or use our tools to enhance in-person play as well. We like to think of Roll20 as the all-in-one solution. So with Roll20, you've got the virtual tabletop for all of your maps with awesome features like dynamic lighting to make the gameplay more immersive. You can have specialty tokens. You can do, fully fleshed out character sheets that interact with the book content that you're playing. Basically, you take all the tools that you would use at the table and enhance them in a digital way so you can play online with folks that are across the country or down the street. And it's been a really great way for people to stay connected and stay playing their games together, even when they're not playing in person.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first time I used Roll20, I think it was back in 2013.
Early adopter.
Yeah. And I've been around tabletop role-playing games for a while. So I discovered it, and actually what I did then was I created a map on it and I just threw it up on my TV screen for my group at the table. Right.
Yeah.
And so it was to me at that point, that was, because we were meeting in person, still then quite a bit. And that was just it was just like, oh my gosh, right? Like I can do this. And it was great. And I had a lot of fun doing that. And then, of course, as we all know, the pandemic happened. And that is when my group really kind of transferred to online and using Roll20 pretty much every week. And we really haven't gone back. And that's kind of an interesting kind of development from the pandemic. And I definitely wanted to ask you some things about the pandemic and how that's affected Roll20. So would you say that has been that you kind of saw that across the board, that once the pandemic hit, a lot of people who were meeting in person kind of adopted the virtual tabletop kind of model?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those tricky subjects because no one at Roll20 is glad for the circumstances. But what we really try to focus on is at a time that was causing people to spend time apart and making life difficult, we were able to supplement, to help, and to bring people together to connect, to play their games and to have fun together. And so we definitely saw a huge boost in people using Roll20 starting around February, March 2020. It's actually very funny. We have some internal anecdotes about watching the user base grow. And that was really, as our international user base began to grow, we realized, oh, this is happening. So we kind of got to watch that effect happen in real time. But to be honest, so, Roll20 was founded in, 2012 was when the Kickstarter campaign was created to launch Roll20. We're actually celebrating our 10-year anniversary right now. The Kickstarter was around April, May of 2012. So that's why I say you're an early adopter. You were literally one of the first year of people on the platform. But the Roll20 has always been growing. It's always been popular. But to give you an idea of how quickly that growth was affected by folks turning to digital play in 2020, we grew from having about 5 million users at the end of 2019, which again, that's over the course of about 7 years, to having 8 million users by mid 2020. It was incredibly impressive to see just how many people were coming to Roll20 to make sure that they could keep up with their game nights, or in many cases, playing tabletop games for the first time. Because, when you think about it from a psychological level, it's like people need to connect. Like people were feeling spread apart, and there's only so far that phone calls and Zoom calls can get you feeling that connection. So I think the tabletop industry as a whole saw a lot more people turning to gaming to stay connected. Roll20 was really able to facilitate that for people. And the good news is the growth has been really strong even since then. We like I said, as we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary right now, we're also at 10 million users, which is an incredible accomplishment, and we're still growing. So who knows when we're going to announce 15 million, but it's been a really interesting change within Roll20, because as the user base grew so fast, we as a company had to grow really fast as well. So Roll20 was always a bit of a smaller operation, usually hovering around under 30 employees. When I was hired in August of 2020, we were at, I think I was like employee number 42 or something like that. And now we're sitting at about 60, just 2 years later. So, the company has literally doubled over just 2 years. And it's really in an exciting phase right now, because along with that growth, which was for sure facilitated by so many users coming to us and trusting us to run their games, we've been able to give back by making a huge amount of changes in a really short period of time. So for a while there, I think our focus, especially in 2020 and early 2021, the focus was what I like to think of as keeping the lights on. Like everyone was trusting us to house their games. Everyone was coming to Roll20 to make sure that they could play together during the pandemic. And we wanted to make sure that that service was stable for them, and that, they could access the games they wanted to play, and that Roll20 could serve that purpose for them. Now things have stabilized a bit. We're more adjusted for the growth, and we're a bigger team, and we've got new priorities. So we're in the next phase of that growth, where we're really focusing on rolling out improvement after improvement for the users as as our next steps as a VTT, but also as a thank you to the 10 million people who really stuck with us and who are using Roll20 in their games every week or every month or however often they play. So, I would say the pandemic definitely had an effect on Roll20. But it's honestly, like I said, circumstances aside, no one's happy about that. But we've really treasured the fact that we've gotten to bring people together to play these games together, and that everyone has, given us a chance. We're actually, as part of our 10-year anniversary, we're running this testimonial campaign at the moment. So we've asked our users to provide us with stories about their favorite experiences playing on Roll20. And there's a competition involved. So we're trying to, encourage folks to submit their stories, and you can win certain, Roll20 prizes if your story gets picked for featuring. But we as a staff, we actually have a whole channel in our Slack devoted to sharing these testimonials. And a lot of them are tearjerkers. It's like the most touching thing you will ever read, as people are writing in to talk about how, well, while my mom was, diagnosed with cancer, we couldn't have a lot of people over at the house. So Roll20 was the way we kept our games up. Or, when my friends and I got split across the country because of our jobs, this was the way that we stayed connected. And then I was the best man in his wedding. And, there's so many amazing stories that people have been coming from social media, coming from our community to share with us. And that amazing energy is what makes working at Roll20 so amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know what you mean. I don't think anybody is happy with the pandemic circumstances. So I totally understand what you mean there. But, just speaking from my perspective, like I said, of course, when everything started happening and the lockdowns and everything started happening, we just, transitioned from in-person to Roll20. And it was a pretty seamless transition. It was we didn't really have too many issues, getting onto the platform or getting everybody kind of settled in or anything like that. And like I said, even I mentioned just a little bit. We really haven't gone back, even though now we are able to, because it's just kind of strange, and it sounds lazy when you talk about it, but it's like, I don't have to clean my house, right? I don't have to drive 20 minutes, or somebody else, a member of my group, he can work late and then run into his house and then still be on time for the game. Right. Just different things like that. And so, that we're still playing online. We're still playing on Roll20, and it's really interesting to see that kind of change. And I wonder if that's happening to other people as well. If other people are kind of finding that as well, that it's
yeah. So,
have you been hearing stories about that as well?
Absolutely. We see this happening. This is because, the follow-up question for how was Roll20 affected by the pandemic? People often want to know, what now? I mean, we're not exactly in a post-pandemic world as much as people want to refer to it that way, but we are in a new phase of this, right? And so we are seeing people having the option to safely return to playing in person. But what we see at Roll20 is that digital play is here to stay for exactly the reasons that you're describing. I mean, I love the example of, I don't have to clean my house, but it's also like, if one of you has the sniffles, you don't have to cancel the game. If it's raining and you're like, God, I really don't feel like going out right now, you don't have to cancel a game. There's ways to, just keep, like you said before, scheduling is so complicated. And now it's so much easier when you know that there's a way the game can happen no matter what else is going on. The other element to this too is that now that people are more accustomed to digital tool sets, we see a lot of this, what we call hybrid play, which is actually, you've referenced it in our call already, where, you had the maps on Roll20 pulled up onto your TV. So I think people have gotten very accustomed now to the ease of setting up a game in Roll20, and you've got all your maps set up and everybody's tokens are there and everyone's character sheets are all built out. And, back in the old days when we would just play at my dining table, it's like, okay, we had the Chess X map laid out and we would draw the dungeon on it. And then we need to erase it at the end of the session. And next session, we're pulling up a cell phone picture to try to redraw it. And my husband's laying out all the minis again. And while obviously I will never besmirch that experience because it's very formative, but it's so much easier to just literally load the campaign and be like, oh, look, everything is still here just the way I want it. So, there's an element of that you simply can't recreate in person. And we've really been, one of our big initiatives within the past couple of months has been really trying to serve those users who are looking for hybrid play. So I don't know if you've gotten to experience our mobile app yet, but we recently released our mobile app, which right now supports the 5th edition character sheet and all of the compendium content. So if you own, D&D books on Roll20, you can have all your character sheets pulled up in the mobile app. You can leaf through the books, search for a spell that you want to talk about or a magical item that you want to reference right from your phone. So all of that work that you've put into your Roll20 campaign before you were playing in person, if you are playing in person, you can just pull up the mobile app and you've got all of that built and ready to go. So, digital gameplay and the tools that we have on Roll20 to facilitate it, they are definitely still very popular. They are not going away. You are not alone there.
Yeah. And sadly, I have not got to use the mobile app yet, but that is really interesting that you could be gathered at a table and pull up, you pull up your cell phone or whatever, and you can pull up all the details right there. I think that is really fantastic because, and like you said, everybody's getting used to more and more digital tools, right? Because now, even if you're playing a game that's like really crunchy and you need a calculator, well, guess what? Everybody has a calculator in their pocket.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's like this is stuff you don't even think about, that it's just like, 20 years ago, you would have had to go search around somebody's house for a calculator or something, and you'd be frustrated or but now you can just pull one out of your pocket and just go. And so I think, as things progress, obviously the digital tools are just being there as an enhancement is really great. And like I said, it kept us playing during the pandemic, which we were grateful for because, we would have just had to cancel all of our games, right? And so it kept us going through. My only big criticism with online play is that there was a trick that I used to use as a game master, which I can't really use anymore. And that was what I used to call as listening to the table. And that was when, and people might not know this, but when I would excuse myself from the table to go get a drink or something like that, I would be listening to my players talk in the other room. And usually half the time when I said I needed to get another drink or something was just to give me an excuse to walk away from the table so I could think about something that I needed to do as a game master because I was hitting a brick wall. I would listen to them in the other room, and then I would come back and I would take some of the stuff that I heard them say. Like they'd say, "Oh man, that innkeeper's shady," or "Oh no, this rebel contact at the spaceport, I don't know, he seemed a little funny," or something. And then I take that and I would use that at the table. Sadly, that doesn't happen anymore because now if we take a break, I don't hear anybody talking at the table. So
my guy, Roll20's got you covered.
Oh, they do?
My secret. So when everyone is in the game, we do have voice and video support in the game so that you can chat and see your fellow players in the bottom corner. Or the top corner if you prefer. But all you need to do is if you've got if you've got the sound on open mic, or if you've got a headset that's wireless, you do the same thing. Just, I'll be right back. I'm going to go grab a drink. And then everybody's going to chat while you're gone. And this is actually, you can hear them even better because it's in your headset while you're out of the room.
Okay. Well, I will definitely try that. I will definitely try that. But usually they'll take a break too then, right? That's the problem. But I will definitely try that and I will see what I can do.
Well,
but like I said,
away your big secret. So
yeah. Well, I talk about all my game mastering tips and stuff online and stuff, but like I said, I've been getting to play more, so I haven't been having to worry about that. I've throw everything onto my GM now and rely on what he's doing instead. So I don't know what he's doing, but so that doesn't really bother me too much the last year or so after I finished up my campaign that we transitioned to from Roll20. And I might add too that transition, like we had started, I was running a campaign. Actually, I was running Curse of Strahd, and I was running Curse of Strahd in person. And we translated to online right when the lockdown happened, and it went really smoothly. And I did notice something. I noticed that people didn't cancel as often, right? Because they were able to just, that window shrank so much, because they didn't have to drive to my house. They didn't have to do some of these other things that push them into kind of, that push their schedule a little bit tighter. So we were able to, really finish out with a lot of players, without a lot of missed sessions. So that was really great. And now I did want to ask, kind of where Roll20 is going and what what kind of the future holds. But I definitely want, maybe before I do that, I introduced you as director of licensing. Why don't you explain what exactly that means for, I'm sure some listeners don't even know what that means, and I'm not even 100% sure. So what does that mean, and what do you do with licensing at Roll20?
Yeah. So as director of licensing for Roll20, I manage all of our licensed publisher and creator relationships that are on the platform. So basically, this means I'm responsible for working with tabletop game publishers, art creators, etc. I say it's myself and my team, right? We work with all of the folks who create content for tabletop role-playing games and facilitate them in bringing their content to the platform. So Roll20 actually, in addition to being a virtual tabletop, has a full digital marketplace where you can purchase supplemental materials to bring into your games. And I think a really great example that I can use, because again, we've used this example a couple times, it's one that many people are comfortable with, is Dungeons and Dragons. So as director of licensing, I work with Wizards of the Coast, and we are licensing partners with them, which means that we are officially licensed to sell official Dungeons and Dragons content on the marketplace. So take the Player's Handbook, for example. You may own the book, the Player's Handbook, that sits on your shelf, but you can also purchase the Player's Handbook on Roll20. And what that would mean is by purchasing it on Roll20, you unlock all of the content on Roll20, which means you've got all the compendium content with all of the attributes that are in the book that you can drag into your character sheet to quickly build characters. As a GM, you can sort through that and pull monsters right onto the VTT with all the stats pre-built in. Where it really gets great is with adventure content, right? So let's say that I want to run something that's very adventure heavy. Let's say I'm doing Candlekeep, right? So there's so many different adventures built into this, and I want my players to just dive right into it. I don't want to take the time as the GM to set up all of those maps. I'm not going to scan the maps from the book, set them up in the VTT, put up all the dynamic lighting myself, pull in, retype all the pages. That's so much work. And this all goes back to what we were talking about before of the big perceived block of being a game master. But in Roll20, if you purchase, let's say, if you purchase the Candlekeep book on the marketplace, then you've unlocked all that content in your Roll20 account. So you've got it all set up in the VTT ready to go. You've got all that adventure content completely built out. So really all you have to do as the Dungeon Master is open up that module, just take a look at everything, make sure you're familiar with it, rifle through some of the handouts, the same way that you would flip through some of the pages to get comfortable with the material. And then the moment your players are all in the game, you've got it set up with all the tools ready to go. It's just a really easy onboarding right into playing the game, and it saves you so much time. So as director of licensing, that's basically what I do. I work with publishers to create official licensing partnerships with them and help them bring their content to the Roll20 marketplace. And Dungeons and Dragons is just one example, but we have about 500 to 600 different publishers and creators on the marketplace, and over 10,000 different products on the marketplace as well. And that's everything from core rule books to bestiaries to adventure books across tons of different game systems: Cyberpunk Red, Vampire the Masquerade, Fallout RPG, Dune RPG, Pathfinder, Starfinder. Basically, if you can think of a TTRPG that you love, chances are that there is something for it on the marketplace, or at the very least, that's what I'm trying to make happen. And then in addition to that, we have a really robust creator community. So these are folks who make, custom map packs or special tokens or art packs that you can kind of think of as accessories for your game. So regardless of whether or not you buy the book content, like I was describing before, you could buy the map packs from a creator whose art you really love. And then you've got these new, unique, beautiful maps to pull into the tabletop to set up for your players. So it's really the digital version of the fun stuff that we buy for the physical table. Like if you're buying art books or special dice or special minis, think of that as digital, and all of that is available on the Roll20 marketplace, thanks to our licensing arrangements.
Yeah, no, that's nice. And now here's where I'll ask a question under the guise of helping my listeners, but I'm actually secretly wondering if it will help me as a creator of, if somebody were to create Dungeon Master or Game Master resources, how would they go about listing them or in the marketplace on Roll20?
It's actually very easy. So we welcome anyone and everyone to apply to be a creator. Simply, really, the only requirements are that, you have to own the content that you're selling. So it should either be original or you own the license to distribute it. And you have to be able to be paid via the US. You don't have to be a US citizen, but we do all of the payments to our creators via PayPal. So it's actually, we try to set things up to be as favorable as possible for the creators. We want to make sure, it's a non-exclusive contract that we have. So whatever you publish on the Roll20 marketplace, it is yours. You own it. That is your content. Roll20 is not trying to say, this is a Roll20 adventure. It's just your adventure on Roll20. So actually, if you are interested in that, we have a whole portion of our website dedicated. It's our Roll20 Creator HQ. And honestly, the easiest way to get there is just Google Roll20 Creator HQ. And that's going to lay out our application process and all of the questions that folks tend to ask us about the process. But long story short, if you do anything that could translate to a virtual tabletop, if you create art or if you design maps, if you're a cartographer, if you are a GM who just freaking loves the homebrew content you've come up with, and you're like, other people should experience how awesome this is, you can literally just build it into Roll20 the way that you would your campaign for your friends, right? And then basically you sell that to other players. So if you've got your campaign built into Roll20 with your maps and the handouts are full of all the info about your particular adventure, that's all you need. You sell that via the marketplace, and then any user who purchases it gets to try out your content on the VTT.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who are listening who would be interested in that, because a lot of people, obviously, as you know, right, the whole PDF market, the whole print on demand market has just exploded with people who are creating, because most people who run games, I think, if I've just spent 20 hours creating something, why not let other people enjoy it as well, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, I guess, before we kind of move into the future where Roll20 is going, I guess one follow-up that I did have to the kind of the pandemic and the explosion of growth, were there some features in Roll20 that people just started kind of clamoring for that you guys had to just try to get out there really quick because more and more people were heading onto the platform?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So first of all, one of our most popular features, which is dynamic lighting, that's a feature that can be unlocked via subscriptions for Roll20. So just to clarify, Roll20 is completely free to use. Everyone can make an account today, go into the VTT, have fun, play with your friends. Character sheets are all there for free. Basically, all the basic tools you need to get into a game, you have access to with a free account. But we also feature subscription levels that unlock some special things like increased storage and our most popular feature, which is dynamic lighting. And dynamic lighting, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically you as the GM can set up lighting along the walls and all throughout the map so that as players are moving through a dungeon, for example, they only see what they should be able to see. You can think of it kind of like Fog of War Plus, but it's so much more immersive because it mimics the lighting effects that you've set up in the map. So if there's torches around, then players are only going to see what's lit by the torches. If one player has night vision, then they'll see what their character can see, whereas the player at the computer 3 houses over that doesn't have night vision doesn't get to see that stuff. So it's a really great way to help make particularly dungeon crawl battle very immersive. So why am I talking about dynamic lighting? So all of this is again, one of our most popular features, one of the features we've had for an incredibly long time that made Roll20 stand out in the beginning. But it was devised in a way back when Roll20 was first blossoming that wasn't as sustainable for future improvements or for a huge user base as we wanted it to be. So in 2020, we undertook a huge project of completely revamping the code for dynamic lighting. And we were really happy to reveal, for a while, it was referred to as updated dynamic lighting, but it is just dynamic lighting. We have retired the legacy dynamic lighting at this point. And it's basically the same concept, but with so many more features, so much more interactive capabilities, so much more immersion. And it's set up in a way where our developers can keep building on it and keep rolling out new awesome features for it. So to give you an example, since we rolled it out, we've added a bunch of features that were never supported in dynamic lighting before, like walls and blocked views. So that, as opposed to when I say walls, I mean like one-way, windows, one-way walls, right? So someone can see through one side, but if they go on the other side, maybe they can't see, or if they walk in the door, they see more. Like really building on that immersive quality of what the dynamic lighting can bring to the map. It's all capable because of those improvements that our development team worked really hard to make in the last 2 years. Additionally, one of the things that we had requested, I believe it was the number one requested feature on our suggestion forums for, I don't know, a very long time, starting in the pandemic, dark mode. So Roll20, the VTT, it was originally designed similar to a whiteboard. And so the website's design was all, based on white, and the VTT itself was a big white grid. And of course, if you build things on top of it, that covers it up. But we got asked time and time again, like, I love using Roll20, but I'm a dark mode person, or this is killing my eyes. Like, can you do anything about this? So this year we brought dark mode to the VTT in response to those user requests. And we actually have made a commitment to knock out the top suggested requests. We have a suggestion forums on in our forum community where we ask our community members to come to us and tell us, what do you want to see from Roll20? And then all of our users can upvote the things that they think are the most important. And we use those suggestion forums to prioritize the next updates that are coming to the VTT. So short answer to your question is yes, absolutely yes. So the long answer is that's actually how we devise our product roadmap. We want to do what the users are asking for, and we want to make changes that make the platform more sustainable and that create an easier entry point for folks to just dive into the VTT and start playing games.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And I should say that our Game Master now has been really diving into the dynamic lighting, and it has been a lot of fun. So I didn't mess with it too much right at the beginning when we transitioned over, but our current GM has been playing with it, and it's really cool. And I've also been using dark mode, so there you go. So so check both of those off. So really good there. And now, I was going to ask, I kind of hinted a couple times, what does the future hold for Roll20? Where do you see it going? Obviously, we've already established like online play is not going anywhere. It's only going to be growing, I would assume, especially as the hobby is exploding with the popularity of Dungeons and Dragons just being like off the chart. It is amazing. I started playing in 1982 when I was 9 years old, and just going through some lulls of tabletop role-playing games where it was kind of, there was hardly anybody playing and you couldn't find anybody who was playing. Now I'm running into, very young teenagers that say they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm losing my mind because I was like, where were you when I was in the 8th grade kind of thing, or whatever. But like, it's just exploding so much. So I have to think that the future of Roll20 is, and online play is looking bright, and you guys have a lot of plans moving forward.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We've had, like I said, we've had a huge number of changes coming out in the past couple of months. And a big portion of this is, again, because our team has grown so much, but also we recently had a transition of a new CEO. So our founder, Nolan, was the CEO for all time at Roll20, and he decided to move on to the next phase of his career. He's always wanted to make films. He's got a lot of other aspirations. So he's still an advisor on the company board, but Ankit Lal, who came over to us from Google, is now the CEO, and he has so much product experience, it's so much knowledge and insight when it comes to really iterative and fast-paced software development. And we've really seen that leadership kick our team into high gear. So one of the biggest things that we are addressing right now is performance of the VTT. I mean, like I alluded to before, during the surge of the pandemic, we were really focusing on keeping the lights on and on making sure that the service was as consistent and stable as possible for our users. And now we're really looking to improve it so that we make things better and better for our users. We have an entire team of developers that are devoted to a project we call Operation Firebolt, which they are focusing on improving the performance of the VTT. And they just released earlier this year a development that makes over 80% of games in the VTT load over 50% faster. So we've already seen tons of users come in and say like, wow, the VTT is running so much better than ever before. And it's been awesome to see users really take note of that, because it seems like a small change. I mean, in some cases, it's a matter of a couple of seconds of how long the VTT loads, but it just helps keep that immersion going, and it makes players feel, I think, really appreciated when little changes like that are made to just make their lives better when they're using the product. We also have lined up some really exciting stuff for the months ahead. So trying to think about when folks are listening to this, we are rolling out free trials. So like I mentioned before, users can join Roll20 for free, but we do have 2 different subscription levels to unlock special goodies. And for the first time ever, we're offering free trials. So if you want to give a subscription feature a try, you can sign up for a free trial to try out a Plus or a Pro account right as you are starting your account. We have more updates coming to dynamic lighting. I mentioned the work on doors and windows before, and we're just going to keep vamping that up. We have a really expanded UI UX team as well. That's their sole mission is to improve the design experience of the VTT. So we're going to have an entire refresh of the UI on the VTT, which I know a lot of folks are really looking forward to. And that will include things like updated page menu organization, a revamp of our voice and video service, and faster, smarter character sheets that load faster, that work on mobile beyond just the 5th edition sheet, different layers for weather and ambiance. So just a lot of fun things that our users have really requested and really been clamoring for. We are rolling them out pretty quickly. So it's going to be an exciting couple of months at Roll20.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds awesome. Now, don't you also create some actual play content as well? Don't you have teams of players that create actual play content to show people the platform and that?
Yes, we absolutely do. So there is there's actually a particular cast we've been loving doing actual play content with before, with our GM Abria and guest stars like Becca Scott, Mika Burton. We just recently had Freddie Wong, Brennan Lee Mulligan. They make an amazing team. And we first invited them to play with us for our Roll20 Con, which is our annual online convention that we run usually in the fall around October or so. So last year they performed a special Strixhaven adventure, and it was such a wild time, just complete chaos and incredibly fun to watch. So we did it again here for our 10-year anniversary event. We brought the gang back together and had them do a special adventure from our friends at Kobold Press. So a little adventure from their very popular Scarlet Citadel book. And we just revealed that. We just launched it a couple weeks ago. So I can't reveal too much, but there are some more fun things like that are coming up. And what I really love about these projects is, I mentioned before how I have this mission of getting as many TTRPG systems represented on Roll20 as possible, because we talk about D&D a lot, but at the end of the day, Roll20 is a system agnostic tabletop. That's always been important to us. It's been an important part of our company values. And so while, yes, D&D is the most popular system played on Roll20, it is far from the only system you can play on Roll20. Right now, there are about 900 different game systems that you can play on Roll20. And of course, you could technically play anything on Roll20 if you're just using the VTT and adding your own stuff. But I'm talking about things that are represented via character sheets and via marketplace content, right? Yeah. So doing these actual plays is a great way for us to partner with some of these publishing partners that we just love working with. So folks like Kobold Press, folks like Chaosium, folks like Evil Hat Productions. I mean, I'm just naming a few. We have we're in good company in the industry. We've got some really good friends over at Roll20, and we're just really excited to keep collaborating with them and bringing fun content to users to watch that also helps show off and kind of tutorialize the VTT while we're at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, where can people find Roll20 and learn more about the platform or sign up?
Absolutely. If you go to roll20.net, that's roll with the number 20.net. You can sign up, create your free account, log in, take our quick tutorial, which is really fun, and then just dive right into the VTT, doing whatever you want. You can use our looking for group system to find other players if you don't have anyone lined up to play the game with you. And then if you want to follow us on social media, that's really the best place to check out fun new products coming to the marketplace, so new games coming, etc., as well as the actual plays we're talking about, and just all the fun promotions and events that we do. All of our social media handles are Roll20 app at the end. And we also, as of, a couple months ago, have a really awesome TikTok account that's managed by our community manager, Danny. He is freaking killing it over there. So if you're a TikTok person, go follow the Roll20 app TikTok account. It is controlled chaos, like absolute wild delightfulness. So I highly recommend it.
All right. And I will be sure to add some of those links into the show notes for this episode at dicegeeks.com. So anybody who's listening right now can head over there and find some of those links and check out Roll20 or their TikTok. Well, Emily, it was a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you so much for coming and enlightening me and my listeners on Roll20. Just thank you so much for being on the show today.
Of course. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. There it is, guys. I really hope you enjoyed my conversation with Emily today. As I mentioned in the show, at dicegeeks.com. In the show notes, you will find links to Roll20, links to the creator marketplace that they have, so you can learn more about those things and see if that will help your tabletop RPG experience. Remember, dicegeeks.com, show notes. All right. Now, if you want some free stuff, head over to dicegeeks.com/free. You'll get some free PDFs of some things that will help you in your games, dungeon maps, and some other things. Plus, you'll get an email update from me every Friday letting you know what I am cooking up here in the Dice Geeks laboratory. Now, guys, I thank you so much for listening. If you really enjoy the show, I would ask you to support it in some way, like, rate, review, subscribe. Those things help the show immensely. If you guys would like to check out the Patreon, it is patreon.com/dicegeeks. Financial support would go a long, long way for me continuing this show, guys. Okay. Again, I just thank you so much for listening. And until next Wednesday, keep gaming.